we hope will be helpful to you parents as you prepare your children for the new learning environment and experience. As per our custom, we usually begin our session with our housekeeping rules. Harriet?
Good evening, everyone. So glad that you've joined us. We're so happy to have you. Ms. Errol mentioned a few of them. I'll just repeat them. There is an icon and hand raise an icon at the bottom, so you can raise your hand when you have a question. We'll have an area for that. We want to encourage you to keep your videos off, not because we don't want to entertain you, but just because we want to keep everything flowing nicely. Another thing we want to remind you of is that this is a judgment-free zone. So we want to encourage you to share experiences, ask questions, give support to another question. That's all encouraged. Our chat is being managed by Aricia Williams. So you will have somebody who will be responding to you in the chat. And we just want to encourage you, for all those who are listening, to sit back and to relax. We welcome you to another Parenting 101 session, and it's indeed a pleasure for us to share. Remember, you are awesome. You're awesome parents. And one thing I wanted to remind you of, yes, Don Maria, as we go into discussion, is just to remind people that, you know, you're not in it alone. We're here because we want to give you support, and you're not alone. So we're here to support you in your transitions, to help to make them smoother, and to provide some tips and guidance along the way. All right, Dawn Marie, over to you.
All right, thanks, Harriet. And we just want to be clear that our conversation and focus this afternoon is more about what you as parents and guardians can do before your children enter the school plans, before they go off to the actual school, things you can do in preparation for that. And so, Harriet, you're a parent.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing, you know, a lot of talks about the reopening of school. I've been hearing parents and guardians having concerns about their children going back to school. And of course, there's that level of anxiety. As a parent, how are you dealing with all of this? And I know you have your thing you want to share, so I'm not telling anybody, I'm not giving away the secret, you know, but from where you're sitting, you know, what are some of the concerns? Because I'm sure other parents will be able to identify.
Yes, definitely, definitely. I mean, you could never be too prepared. And so even in the preparation, there is still that bit of anxiety that one allow you to think about, how will my child handle it? How will they respond to the changes? And being in the classroom and wearing masks. What happens if there is another change? Because one of the things we want to focus on today is the transitions and the changes and all the new information. You know, in March we weren't so educated about COVID. Now we are scholars. And so, how will they respond? And actually, one of the things I've experienced is that my children are very, you know, they're into it. They actually don't rate my response to COVID as good as theirs, because they are very keen on wearing their mask properly, washing their hands and that kind of stuff. And so we all have our challenges with this area. There is something that we are not quite accustomed to, or there are difficulties we may face, but it is so important to be able to talk about those issues and to look at what are some of the other things that persons are doing and what are some of the practices that we can adopt in our situation. You know, there will be many different situations, and they're numerous. And so, because of the many different situations, the many factors behind of those situations, just how you will manage your time and how the day will be managed alone is, you know, something that we have to prepare for. But one of the things we want to keep in mind is that let's try to remain flexible. That's one thing that's really helped me. Try to remain flexible, to know that there may be a change. And so I need to, I'm telling myself that, I'm preparing my brain for that, so that I'm not shocked and think I have to stop and start over all the time. So those are some things that I've looked at, yes.
Awesome. I think you really hit it on the nail when you talk about flexibility and, you know, as a nation, and not only as a nation, but globally, we are really going through uncharted waters.
Yep.
and you never know when there's going to be a high and when there's going to be a low. And so every day it's a learning experience. Every day you're trying to improve upon what you learned yesterday. And we know a lot of the anxiety that parents are experiencing and even children are experiencing is the unknown, and what is controllable and what is uncontrollable. And we want to encourage our parents to focus on what is controllable, what they can do, you know, as opposed to looking at things outside of their control. And the good thing about this afternoon is that we have people, experts, who is ready to share information about what it means to have a positive environment, what it means to speak and to communicate positively around your children, with your children, to your children in these uncertain times. We have Dr. Marlene Murray. She is a molecular geneticist out of Tobago, and she is going to be talking to us about brain-mind connection. And it's so funny because when I learned of the information or the topic, I went searching because it was exciting. And I'm eager to hear the information that she's going to present to our parents. We want parents to understand the importance of using positive language. Even when you are scared, even when you are uncertain, you want to encourage and speak positively to your children. And we're going to learn how that impacts brain and brain development. In addition, we have our own Dr. Jocelyn Walters Thomas. She's a pediatrician, and she is going to be sharing some information about how to get children's immune system up. What are some of the things you need to put in place as far as routine and structure? And it's important to start now. It's important to gradually get children back into the rhythm of getting up at a certain time, getting adequate sleep, eating and drinking the right stuff so that their immune system is built up from home. This is where you parents can control. You can control protecting your children as best as you can on the home front, while the other stakeholders are going to do their best to protect them when they get to school. So we're excited to hear from both our guests. They're going to introduce themselves as their turn comes to make their presentation. And of course, our own Harriet, she has a surprise. I'm excited about it. And so you have to stick around until towards the end of the session. I want you to stay for the whole thing, so you can't afford to miss that. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Dr. Murray. As I mentioned, she's a molecular geneticist, and she's going to be talking to us about the brain-mind connection. Dr. Murray?
Okay, thank you. Someone is at my door. Can I go?
Yes, yes, of course. Really, yes. So while Dr. Murray is taking care of that, I know that even the students are a bit anxious. Even the students getting ready, but we want to know, parents, this is not only for you, and I hope that while you're listening that you have your child or children nearby so they can hear what's being said. Dr. Murray, you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right,
Okay,
there you
can
go.
I share my screen?
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay,
of course.
great. Well, I have to, let's see here first. Okay, so I am going to talk about the brain-mind connection. And I became interested in, well, I've always been interested in the brain and how it works because of family history, and it's part of my research agenda. So when we think about the brain and the mind, we know what the brain is and how it controls everything we do, but the mind is sort of abstract. What exactly is your mind? Sometimes we think of the mind as the heart or something up here, but what is the mind? So the mind is actually the part of a person that helps us to be aware of the world, right? Helps us to be aware of the world. It tells it, that's where we get our experiences, right? Our experiences, how we feel, our consciousness, our awareness, even our memories. That's a part of us that helps us to have all those experiences, and our thoughts, which is what I will focus on today. Our thoughts. So that's the mind. And how does that connect to the brain? Well, the brain is actually the physical structure, right? It's the physical structure where the mind works. And I wanted to show you just a little landscape of the brain. So our brain is divided into all of these lobes, and each lobe has its own function. But I want to focus on what we call the frontal lobe. This is the part of the brain that separates us from the animals. You know, we are classified in the animal kingdom, but we have this special part, and it's actually in the front, right here. That frontal lobe is what distinguishes us as humans. And that's where we have things like thinking and planning, our emotions, which, you know, and our behavior is actually controlled by that frontal lobe. When individuals experience, let's say, traumatic brain injury, let's say you're in a car accident, a motor vehicle accident, and you damage the frontal lobe, then your thinking becomes a little off. Your reasoning is not as good. So that part of the brain is very important because it's involved in, you know, thinking or planning, problem solving, for example. So let's think about what is thoughts. What are our thoughts? So we know we have feelings and emotions and attitudes. All those are part of your thoughts. So your thoughts are really an idea, an opinion that occurs, sometimes it occurs suddenly, right? You've all experienced that, sudden thoughts in your mind. And our thoughts, it's important to know that our brain actually has about 50,000 thoughts every day. Right? We're not really processing it. We don't think, oh, I have 50,000 thoughts, but 50,000 thoughts move through our brain on a daily basis. But the interesting thing is that 70% of those thoughts are negative. So something about us has this propensity to just be negative. And we know with the scholars that we've become as COVID scholars, we have become cool. It's very easy to be quite negative. So most of us might have more than 70 thoughts now with COVID around, and it's normal, it's natural. And so we have to make a real conscious decision to not have those negative thoughts. And I just have this display showing you the amount of thoughts that come up that are in our brain, but 70% of them are negative. So our thoughts actually travel through these tracks. You can think of your brain, it's a physical structure, and so it's made up of special cells, right, called neurons. And these neurons, you can think of them as train tracks. So we have all these train tracks going in all directions in our brain, and our thoughts travel along these train tracks. They travel along these train tracks, and they have an effect. They have an effect on our feelings. So our thoughts affect our feelings, and our feelings affect how we behave. So when we think negatively, we feel negative and we behave negatively. And then it has this cyclical effect. So when you behave negatively, then you start thinking negative again, and you feel negative again, and you behave negative. So you generate this really vicious cycle that is sometimes very hard to get out of. So let's look at the effects of positive thoughts on our brain and versus negative thoughts on our brain. So like I said, the brain has all these tracks, right? These train tracks, all that the thoughts travel along. And when we have positive thoughts, this is what happens. Well, let's list some of the positive thoughts. Peacefulness, right? Being peaceful, truth, being wise. Those are positive things. Loving, positive things. And look what happens when we have positive thoughts. Those train tracks actually grow. They start extending and making new connections, and that helps us to think, to be more creative, for example. It helps us in having better behavior, better feelings, so we end up with better behavior. So our train tracks actually grow. Our brain actually grows. And think of that in the context of a child, right? If you are nourishing a child with positive thoughts, look at the impact that you can have on that child's brain, right? It literally grows, not to deformity, but appropriately, where that child actually could become more wise, right? Having these positive thoughts. But what about negative thoughts? Let's see what happens with negative thoughts. So with negative thoughts, let's list some of these negative thoughts. Anxiety. Who isn't experiencing anxiety today? I think probably all of us, with what is happening in the world. There's anger, jealousy. I think well, we know what negative thoughts are, but let's see what happens when we have negative thoughts. I'm a bit stuck here. Let's see what happens. I'm not sure what's going on. Go back here. Okay, let's see if this works. So our brain, those tracks actually get smaller. There's a lot of studies that show that depression, anger, jealousy, all of those make those train tracks dissolve. They actually dissolve. And as they dissolve, our brains literally shrink. Okay, so this is the importance of having these positive thoughts, fostering positive thoughts, because our thoughts impact our feelings, and those feelings affect the way we behave. That's on that's what you can visualize, that's what you can see. But on the inside, we're actually damaging our brain. We're causing brain damage when we have negative thoughts. How can we change that? How can we change those negative thoughts to positive thoughts? It's a hard thing, right? Because 70% of our thoughts every day are negative. How do we change that? One of the things I could tell you personally that I do is that I capture that thought. And I hear that word, that thought in my head, I stop it. Just stop it right away. One way to stop it is to write it out. Get a sheet of paper, you write that out, and you look at it, because sometimes writing it out makes it tangible so you can see it. You look at that thought and you think, is this true? Or is this is this the truth, or is this a lie? A lot of times our negative thoughts are not true, right? That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is reframe that thought. Let's say your hair isn't looking very good that day, right? You could say, instead of saying my hair looks awful, you could say, well, I tried. It's a new style. I'm going to create a new style. So that's called reframing those thoughts into something positive, because you can always pull something positive out of whatever situation it is. Let's say it's storming, it's raining outside. We could look at the rain as a negative thing, or we could look at it as a positive thing. It's watering the grass, it's watering the trees, we have more fruits, more food to eat as a result of the rain. So reframing those negative thoughts are actually a good way of doing it. And one thing I know works, really works for sure, is to think about, be grateful. That's it. Gratitude. Think about, focus on the good things that you have in life. We all have bad things, negative circumstances that happen, negative experience, but we all have positive experiences too. So I think focusing on the positive experiences helps us to it steers us away from the negative. So one of the practices, well, I have done in the past was to every day for 21 days, write down 3 positive things that you are thankful for. Because it takes about 21 days to form new tracks in the brain. So every day for 21 days, just write down 3 positive things that you're thankful for. And you will see a difference in how your thinking works, how your brain works. Your brain will grow. You will see your brain growing, but it will cause you to feel differently. When you feel differently, you behave differently. And when we behave differently, we impact others. So as parents, if we have better behavior, our children will behave better. Okay, so that's my talk on the mind-brain connection.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, I have like a lot of questions to ask. The presentation.
Let me stop sharing my screen.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Okay.
The presentation was very clear, very, very clear. So know that the brain is a actual physical organ, and we know that thoughts are derived from perception and things in our external environment, and we also have that internal environment where those automatic thoughts come from. One of the things that I want you to talk a little about is, what about children who grow up who are currently living in environment, not necessarily in the immediate home, but in the community where there's a lot of negativity, where there's a lot of violence, where there's a lot of maladaptive behaviors? How can we, or how can parents try to kind of shift that? If there's negativity all around and you're the only ray of light as a parent, what can you do to help your child?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh, creating as much as possible, creating a home environment that is positive. You really have no control over what is outside. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of control over what is inside your home. And most of us have that control. So, for example, the books they read, mm-hmm, right, the programs on television. Maybe it's not a good idea to have the news running 24/7, because although they may not sit and listen to it 24 hours, they're hearing it. Yes. So limit that, and also the way you speak to them. The way you speak to your child is another way of helping to create a positive environment. Yes. The child should know that home is safe. Home is a safe place for them to, even if they have a bad day, they can express that to you, and then you can come up with some ways to make it a better day for them. It might be eating a mango, it might be eating a cake, something, but mm-hmm, creating a safe haven for that child is one way I think we can help with some of the negativity around. And
giving praises and compliments,
yeah,
is really important. And you also mentioned how, I like to say, thoughts ignite feelings. Oh no, it's thoughts ignite emotions that drives action, right?
Yes.
So it's a motor car.
Yes.
And so you have persons who, because of what they're thinking, they start to feel negative about themselves. And so we're talking about building self-esteem and why it's important to praise your children, why it's important to compliment your children. So I hope persons are beginning to see how important it is to speak positivity and to speak positively around your children, to your children, and to each other as adults.
Yes.
Because even though you may not be speaking to the child per se, if you speak to another adult in a negative way, the child is taking all that in. And in addition to that, I also want to and hope to encourage parents, whatever your feelings are about school staff, admin, or what have you, you want to be careful what you say about school and the staff and the admin in the presence of children, because children take their cues from you. And if everything you have to say is negative about the school, then what exactly are you teaching your children about school? So I like the capture and challenge the negative thoughts when they come up. So I hope our parents are going to do that 21-day challenge to just speak positively and to help create new and positive tracks on the brain of their child or the one in their charge. Dr. Murray, I want to thank you so much for your presentation. I know that the information was well received. I'm pretty sure they'll let me know if there are any questions that, any further questions along the way. And so, thank you. And so now that we've talked about the mind-brain connection.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Marie. I was just wondering if she could make a link with developing those positive thoughts and also creating schedules and routines for your children. What type of connection?
Schedules, you said?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not a parent, I have to say, but I do know structure helps, right? Structure is very important. And so creating a schedule lends itself to structure. The child it's not chaotic. And just having structure helps, can facilitate better brain development. Right. I'm not sure how to connect that with positive thinking, but I know that the chaos is not a good, it's stressful, right? Chaos is stress, and stress affects every aspect of our bodies, right? Just not physical, but not just it affects every aspect, physical, mental, everything. So I can imagine that having chaos, stress, can have a negative impact on the brain. Now, I haven't looked into a specific study about chaos on the physical impact of the brain, but if negative thoughts can have such an impact, I would imagine that stress would do have a similar impact.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. Just to tie that off, Dr. Murray had mentioned forming new tracks on the brain. I guess that has to do with neuroplasticity. When you're talking about structure, if it's possible for parents to get their children into a routine and following a structure for at least 21 days or at least a week or two, we're hoping that would create some positive tracks.
Oh, absolutely.
And what?
Yes.
Exactly, right? So ultimately, what it does, it reduces the stress on the child and the parent, because the child will then know what is expected of them. But when the child doesn't know and the parent expects the child to do something, that's where the stress comes in. So
Yes.
Follow
And the
21
good thing
days.
the good thing about it is that children or young people are more malleable, right? So their brains are more malleable. This is a time really that you can make such an impact, a great impact on the child at this age, at the young, the younger they are. And so making those adjustments and creating a less stressful environment will have quite a positive effect on the child.
Awesome. Thanks again, Dr. Murray.
Thank you.
So, you're
Presentation.
welcome. So we've touched on mind-brain connection. And parents, we were reminded that it's important to engage your children into positive communication and do your best within what's controllable to create a positive home environment. Praise your children, compliment them, encourage them. And now here's another aspect of preparing them to go back to school. And that is doing things that is going to boost their immune system, get a routine going. And remember, just like anything, you want to test drive this system. It's a new system, so you don't want to wait until the 7th of September to say, okay, now it's time to go back to school. You want to start the process now, getting them into a rhythm so that it is less stress on you and less stress on the children as they return to school. And so we have Dr. Walter Thomas, who is going to share some information with us about how to get your children, some steps in preparing your children for returning to the school plant. Dr. Thomas, Walter Thomas.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Joycelyn Walter Thomas, and I'm a consultant pediatrician, work in the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Environment. I'm a diplomate of the American Board of Pediatrics, as well as a fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And though I've been a physician for the last 15 years, I've been a pediatrician practicing during the last 5 years. This is such an important topic during these times, and I'm ever so pleased to be a part of this conversation. Let me begin by stating that the relationship between the family and the school is paramount this year. Schools in general are very complex and dynamic places where the demands for equitable learning, safety, and well-being, not only for the children, but the teachers and the staff, ought to be met. Under normal circumstances, the organization and structure of these educational systems, they really offer some reassurance to the anxious parent and child about returning to school or starting school. However, during this COVID-19 pandemic, this cast doubt and uncertainty about how this virus really behaves and how it affects us. It's not all gloom and doom though, because nevertheless, as we learn about more about this virus, we understand that recommendations will change, yes, and that the positive out of it is that we've been presented with a unique opportunity to review standards or review the rules. We're able to build resilience as families and retain flexibility in life in general. Look at it this way, even the busiest parents were able to engage and interact more with their children during this time. Some parents were even obligated to have more interactions with the schools and teachers. So parents, I'm sure you had a great opportunity to not only learn about your children's fears and concerns, but to also internalize what your concerns are. You will learn that there's a lot more than you can do to ensure the health of your child and prepare them for school. So we can begin with the things that we do know. To contain the spread of the coronavirus, hygiene and appropriate distancing work. At this time, I'm going to invite our host to share the clip. It's a video clip about the top 3: wearing masks, washing your hands, and having appropriate physical or social distancing. And it's a video that was made by the World Health Organization, and I'd like to share it with you at this moment.
A fabric mask acts as a barrier to prevent the spread of the virus. It must be used correctly and always combined with other measures to protect yourself and everyone else. When wearing a fabric mask, clean your hands before putting it on. Inspect the mask and do not use it if it is damaged or dirty. Cover your mouth, nose, and chin. Adjust the mask to your face, leaving no gaps on the sides. Avoid touching the mask while wearing it. Change your mask once it gets dirty or wet. To take off the mask, clean your hands first. Remove it by the straps behind the head or ears without touching the front of the mask. As you remove the mask, pull it away from your face. Clean your hands after taking off any mask. If you need to reuse a fabric mask, store it in a clean, resealable bag. Hold the mask at the elastic ends when removing it from the bag and make sure it is not dirty or wet before using it again. Wash fabric masks in soap or detergent, preferably with hot water, at least once a day. Make sure you have your own mask and do not share it with others. When wearing a mask, make sure you know how to put it on, use it, remove it, and discard it or wash it correctly. Remember that a mask alone cannot protect you. When wearing a mask, continue to adopt other measures to prevent the spread of the virus. Stay at least 1 meter away from others. Clean your hands frequently and thoroughly, and avoid touching your face and mask. Stay safe, and let's all prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Okay, thank you so much. I know that as Mrs. Liddy had mentioned earlier on, most of us by now would be somewhat experts in how to wear the mask and how to clean the mask, when to change the mask. But just as critical is the handling of the mask. When you remove the mask, holding it by the straps from behind the ear and taking it away from your face and storing it in a clean Ziploc bag or plastic bag so that it does not get contaminated and you can reuse it once it's not wet or visibly soiled. And so that is critical for the safety of the mask. I know with regards to wearing of the World Health Organization recommends something, it's because it's evidence-based. It's based on research and pulling together very important data that would show the benefit. And thus, being an organization of such international importance, they want to get it right to make recommendations to the rest of the world. However, they also encourage that this has to be tailored to each country knowing their own circumstances and knowing what their resources are. So this is exactly what we'll be doing here in Antigua and Barbuda as well. The leaders in public health, as well as the leaders in education, the government, this is something that we have to look at critically and come up with the right product for us, and thus put that in the protocol. And having said that, I guess I am going to make my second point for parents. One way that you can feel more prepared and lessen your anxiety and whatever trepidation you may have in your heart about sending your child back to school is if you get to know the rules. Getting to know the rules sometimes can really allay those fears. So whatever policies or protocols exist nationally, but especially for your schools or from the Ministry of Education, they're there in place and they're intended to reduce the risk. We know from life that there's no way that you can eliminate all the risks, but we can try to be the safest in how we approach returning to school. So stay on top. The protocols may change as we go along yet again, and as we learn more about the virus and the behavior of the virus and how it really affects us. So part of knowing the rules is also knowing your child's curriculum. This offers a brilliant opportunity for you to communicate more with your school, Know who you can contact about your child's schoolwork plan, not just for the year's planning, but in the event that your child may become ill, or if someone else in the household becomes ill, and then now that child needs to be quarantined and has to remain at home, you can always remain on top of things. Also have a plan for childcare. You may be back to work, you're fully there, you're busy, you have to attend to perhaps other children or elderly persons in the very same household. So you want to make sure you have other family members or support system in place. And this is not just in the event of illness, but what happens during school is just as important as what happens after school when it comes to how your child may decide to socialize, how your child may decide to share transportation or practice or not practice physical or social distancing or the appropriate hygiene or wearing a mask where appropriate. So all of this can dilute whatever effort that we have to prevent the infection, the spread of this infection. So we have to be very mindful of all of these things. Talk about expectations with your children. This is really important because it prepares you as a parent, because now you have a better idea of what your child's thoughts are and how they propose to solve problems, or when placed in various situations or scenarios, give them scenarios, how they would react. What will they do at a time like that? So by doing that, you allow yourself to see exactly how well your child is at problem solving, how your child may self-regulate him or herself. But you allow that child to also see that there is a thought process and there could be consequences to his or her actions as well. In doing so, however, you want to set realistic goals. And remember that the plans can be fluid as well, because the whole idea is you want to, as Dr. Murray says, you want to nurture those train tracks. You want to build positive thoughts, and you want to make sure that these things are nurtured. So the question came up about transitioning and what the connection is in terms of how it can build those tracks with structure and having a plan in place, etc. I agree with your response, Ms. Hughes, and also Dr. Murray. I think it's really important because when you have organization, when you have structure, it builds confidence. When you plan, you're more confident. When you're more confident, you have more positive thoughts, and that's more positive actions. So I would definitely agree with that. So planning is a big part. I know the school year is very much upon us, so we don't have a lot of time. So we only have about a week or two to be able to put our transition plan into place. But it does not have to be painful. Even if you start a week in advance, it should give your child enough time to adjust. I'm going to start with one of the big ones: getting enough sleep. So getting enough sleep is critical for a child to be successful in school. Children who do not get enough sleep, they have difficulty concentrating and learning as well as they can. This is not only associated with like lower academic achievement in high school or college levels, but they're more likely to be absent or late in getting to school. So it affects their habits. And on average, it would be a great idea if every parent would have an idea of what their child requirement, sleep requirement would be. So I would say for most younger children, I would say like a 10 to 12 hour sleep time should be appropriate. For the older children, that's the adolescents, 13 to 18 years of age, there's an average of 8 to 10 hours per night that may satisfy this requirement. Every child is a little different, but that gives you a good ballpark to think about the need for the body to repair itself, to regenerate itself, to rest, to consolidate thoughts and what you've learned during the day as well. So that's why rest is really important. So you can see a little bit more of that brain-mind connection coming out right there. Yes. And so some tips to actually getting enough sleep. You want to start in the morning. Yes, actually waking your child around the time that you would have them be up so that they'll get to school on time. So if your child, you know your child needs at least 10 hours sleep. And you need to have them up by 6 a.m. in order to be out of the house by 7:30 and be at school by 8 or before 8. That child actually needs to be in bed by 8 o'clock that night in order to fulfill that 10-hour requirement.
Yes.
So you can work your way back. You want to develop and stick to a healthy bedtime routine. I must say, for some children who are sensitive, or for our adolescents, we all know who have a very skewed bedtime, especially since they've been at home.
Yes.
We may have some challenges with closing that gap. So it may not be an immediate process. You may have to start in gaps of 15 to 30 minutes per night and then increment as you go so that their bodies are better able to adjust to their new sleep time routine. Extremely important for all age groups because I know we're all exposed to various forms of electronics. We have to turn off those electronics. We have to quiet it down at least an hour before bedtime. Studies have shown that that blue light that's emitted from the screens, they can be so stimulating and they delay the very important onset of the sleepy hormone, which we know as melatonin. So this can result in children taking a very long time to settle and fall asleep. So this can push their bedtime back even later than you intend to. And so they won't meet their sleep demands.
Right.
In that precious golden hour before bedtime, your children may ask, what am I going to do now? I'm so bored. Well, it's a golden opportunity again. You can connect with your children. So that bedtime routine could be a nice warm bath, brushing their teeth, picking up a book, maybe reading a story. If it's a younger child, you read the story to the child, do puzzles, or just simply talk. Get to know your child. You may be a very busy parent yet again, back to your full-time job, and that might be the only opportunity that you have to have these conversations with your child. So make it count. So I wanted to also say starting a morning schedule is just as important. And every morning schedule, coming from a Caribbean family, we all know begins with a good breakfast. So eating a healthy breakfast. Once again, as persons get a little older, you become adolescents, you tend not to want to have breakfast and you tend to not to see the need to have breakfast.
Right.
However, studies show, once again, that children who eat a nutritious breakfast, they function way better throughout the day. They have more energy, they have better concentration, they're better able to apply their knowledge. And a healthy breakfast can vary depending on your household. The important thing is that you have variations in the food that you eat. So most persons may say, what is a balanced diet? And I'll get to that a little bit because the next step is that you want to prepare lunch and also start a lunchtime schedule. So your child is getting a little bit back on track. Okay, this is what my school schedule is going to be. And lunch as well should be varied and healthy. Healthy intaining of low fats, low sugars, more lean protein. So it'd be fish or chicken, which is more common in our diet. Some persons may have beef. Be very careful when it comes to the canned or the processed foods. You want to have more ground provisions, more whole foods, more whole grains, wheats, etc. And vegetables, fruits. Avoid the sweetened beverages. I would say choosing healthy options like water or low-fat dairy, because some children do prefer milk or yogurt around that time. If you intend to give juice, let it be a fruit juice, no more than 8 ounces. Did you know that each 12-ounce drink, that's a juice or a juice drink, that's not really like the full fruit juice, can have approximately up to 10 teaspoons of sugar. That's a lot. And most of them are in excess of 150 calories. When you drink at least one can of soda or one of those sugar sweetened beverages, it increases your chance for obesity by 60%. So if you have one of those every day, just know that you're well on a path to an unhealthy weight gain. And so you want to avoid that very painful, whether it be physically and emotionally, path for your child later down in life. Because a child who is overweight or a child who is obese tends to be an adult who is overweight or obese. And with that, it brings a range of other comorbidities, heart problems, joint problems, increased risk for cancers. Don't talk about the self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
Right there. Right. In all of this as well, during the day, you may not be there to monitor what the child is doing. But if you can encourage your child, especially the older ones, to have a dedicated TV free time or electronics free time or screen time that is reduced. If they can pick up a book and read something every day, make it a habit. That's going to go a long way yet again to nurturing those train tracks. Right, Dr. Murray? Yes. One way that you can really encourage your child to study and to feel that they have a place that is centered in the home is if you prepare a place, a dedicated place where they can study. It's a quiet place that is free from distractions. And it can really enhance the learning experience. They can display their calendars, their schedules, their student work, inspiring words, and even images, something that is just for them. Another way, as not only as a pediatrician, but as a parent myself, I find really sucks the anxiety out of me is when I am well prepared. I have a checklist. It's like my little shopping list. So you want to have your stock up on the school supplies. And when you have your checklist, that's coming from knowing what your school requires for your child to start, but also just the basic supplies that you ought to have. When you know that you're ready, that also gives you a better feeling that you're prepared, better confidence that your child is going to go out there and you would have done your best. Because there's some things that may not be in your control, but this is one of them that will be. And then I'm coming to a close just now. The big one, to build up your child immune system. There are many ways that you can do that as a parent. And, you know, I was sitting there and I was listening to Dr. Murray's presentation yet again, and she spoke about the positive thoughts and, you know, reinforcing those positive thoughts.
Yes.
You do that, your child is going to be happier. Did you know that a child who is happier falls sick less often?
That is true.
That's right. It goes for adults as well. But that's one sure way to build your child's immune system. Thinking positive thoughts, helping that child to be happy.
Yes.
And this famous one is getting outside. I know it's hot. I know it's summer. The heat is intolerable most of the time. But you can pick a time of the day, at least 1 hour, where that child can be outside and be a child playing. Even if that child isn't able to move around much because he or she may have some physical limitations, just having a nice time in that sunlight, breathing fresh air, looking at nature, perhaps observing things in their environment can go a long way into building that child's immune system. Also, if you have a picky eater, like I do, most of you may know about that, or hear parents complain about that, then you may want to consider getting an appropriate multivitamin for your child, depending on the age. So once again, eating the right foods, having a varied diet would give you a better chance of getting all the right vitamins and minerals and nutrients that the child actually needs to fully grow and develop. And that nurtures the mind as well. Drinking sufficient water, remaining hydrated, especially at times like this, will go a long way in regulating your bodily functions or your child's bodily functions. It will help them to be a lot more alert as well, because dehydration tends to zap a little bit your energy. And then I have to mention, for parents during the pandemic, some may have been a little fearful of attending clinics. Some may have fallen back on the immunizations for their children. This is also another important thing. If you have school requirements for your child vaccination, ensure that the vaccines are up to date. This is another way to ensure that diseases that are vaccine preventable, like measles, for example, which we see in other places in the world, it has not been eradicated, unfortunately, in other countries. And with our borders open, we can import it. So you want to make sure you protect the vulnerable ones, protect your child, because it can be a very devastating disease. And so many others that we have vaccines for. For children with special health conditions, disabilities, you want to make sure you have a good conversation with your pediatrician or your family doctor, or you just your physician in general, about your concerns and what's the best way for them to stay healthy once they're back in school. Ensure that they're up to date with their medications and that they can be safely administered in the environment in a new setting, because nothing is going to be the same as before.
Right.
And so I also wanted to impress upon parents that you're not in this alone. We are here to support you. We partner with so many other departments, whether it be in the government or non-governmental, in the community, in churches, wherever, other parents. So seek out a support system that will work for you. Connect with other parents. This is going to go a very long way. You have questions, don't be afraid to ask them. Ask the right questions to the right people so you can get the right answers. I hope this helps. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Walters Thomas. That was in depth.
She covered a lot of grounds.
Yes. Harriet, you took notes. I hope you took notes. You took a lot of notes, Harriet.
Yeah.
You know, I especially like one of the statements that Dr. Walters Thomas said was, know the rules. You know the rules, communicate with the right persons. You don't want to get information from here, there, and everywhere, and it drives up your anxiety even higher. And another point that came out was, you know, a lot of times as adults, we just do. And then we drag the children along with us. We just do. And then we tell the children, do this, do that. But I think if we work in an organized system where we involve children in the conversation, we talk to them about what's going on, we plan with them, sit with them, help them create the schedule that is applicable to them. Because nobody likes to be bossed around. It doesn't matter how small you are. Nobody likes to, I don't like to be told what to do. And so when, you know, they used to have this saying, you know, you let them think they're in control, but really you're the one who's really in control. And so you involve the children in the conversation. You know, you remind them school is about to open in a few days, and we need to start creating a schedule, a routine. And when they contribute to it, they will want to execute it. As opposed to, you're going to get up tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Then when 6 o'clock comes, it's like, But then if the child says, I'm going to get up at 6 because that's what I told mommy we're going to put in the schedule. Firstly, and I don't remember who I was having a conversation with, and they were like, have a reward system. Like those that talk.
I was about to tell you that. I was about to talk about positive behavior management and developing that reward system and offering tokens, you know.
Well, I'm not getting into your presentation. I'm going to let you do it.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to stay away from Harriet's presentation. I don't want to give away anything.
Listen to me, Dr. Walter Thomas covered a lot of areas.
Yes.
I have one slide. If you want me to just share it briefly so somebody can take a screenshot, that's okay.
Absolutely.
I'll just put it up.
Yes.
And
Parents, please take your screenshot.
there you go. I put that little quote down there because I find it ever so true sometimes. You know, your child will follow your example, not necessarily your advice. So a lot of these have to be mirrored by the parent.
Wait, we want to make sure. I am not seeing. I don't know if anybody else is seeing.
Can you
No.
see it?
No, we're not seeing your screen. I think, there you go. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, voila.
Yes. So parents, guardians, take a quick screenshot. There's some really, really good tips here. Dr. Walter Summers also mentioned it's important to expose your children to a variety of foods. And I know a lot of parents, they have different work schedules. You know, it can be a challenge, but I think it's important for you to just press that pause button and think about your work schedule. Think about the routine that you want to establish with your child or children. And you have to make it work for you. It is a unique schedule, structure, routine for you and your family. It's not a one size fit all. You may not work a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 7 to 3, but you know what your work schedule is and you know how your children are. And so you need to sit down and make it work and make it fit for you. Parents, you're not alone. There's help. Reach out and get help. We're here to support you. We've been bringing you information over the last few months, and we really want you to know that you're not alone.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think everyone should have gotten a quick snap of this listing. I hope you did.
Because I just took it down.
And that's okay, that's okay. They don't need to see, they just need to see the info. So we get a lot of comments, we get a lot of awesome session. They love the 21 days positive challenge. So I hope everyone's gonna jump on board, and I know they appreciated all the information that Dr. Walter Thomas shared. And so without further ado, my co-host, Harriet.
So excited.
I'm excited. I know why I'm excited, but
Oh.
I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. So at this time of the night, we normally have an activity. So we want
Yes.
always to give you something to take home, something for you to go home and practice. And normally the activity sort of pulls both sessions together and giving you something to do. Just to share it for 2 minutes, because I thank both presenters so much, because you really, really covered a lot of the areas, a lot of things, tips in terms of parenting and home and school, and really made that connection. So I'm just encouraging those persons who are listening to really, take the information, add it to the information that you have already, improve on what you're doing, see what you want to change, etc. Just to mention a bit that one of the things that excites me the most about this time is parental involvement. And it's going to be really awesome because parents are also involved in curriculum. What are you learning? What are you doing? And there is better monitoring of our children, and it also improves that wonderful relationship we forever work on, parent, teacher, student. It doesn't work any better than that. And so that's important. And so as Dr. Maria was talking about positive thoughts and its impact on brain development, positive behavior management, the way we discipline our children is important as well. The way we correct is important. And one of the big things about positive behavior is mirroring. We have to mirror the behavior we expect to see. And for parents, that includes being overly anxious if something happens, if something changes as well. So we have to monitor our behavior, improve on our own self-care. In our other sessions, we've dealt with a lot of those. So we've given out a lot of information in terms of how you can work on your own self-care even now. You know, for persons who are accustomed to be away on vacation and coming back just in time for school, you know, how do you work on those transitions, etc. We did give a lot of different ideas for you. But in looking at positive behavior management, you want to create a reward system. Very, very simply, you can all have tokens. So you get a token if you step out and you dress quickly, or you eat all your food. And then at the end of the week, or at the end of the day, if you have very small children, because they don't understand those long-term waiting for to get their reward. But you know, 8, 9-year-old, at the end of the week, those tokens can be redeemed for something else, a drink, an extra privilege to watch an extra show on the weekend, you know, and the rewards do not have to cost a lot. Children love the fact that you're just gonna big them up, build their self-esteem, you know, give them privileges is also very important. So we're not saying, oh, go and buy a gift, or they need a new phone, or new, you know. So we want you to use things that are simple, things that are realistic, and things that would tend to build their own self-esteem. Very important. I know we are still very much in our hurricane season. And just to say, that I hope our children have, a lot of them in schools have the disaster kit list, all the things that you need in your list. So these are ways of getting your children involved in doing activities at home. You know, your children can get together, put together this disaster kit. There's also the developing a family contract, and that is something that we would need very much now, because if something happens and you go home, what's your family support system like? What does the family mapping look like? Am I calling auntie? Is it another church member? Is it my neighbor that I can really rely on? Am I going by grandma? But children need to know what are their numbers? How do I, you know, get in contact? Yes, it's written at school, but we also want to educate and teach our children. Social learning, social knowledge is very, very important. So just to say a bit in that, just another method of getting our children involved in what they're doing and so on. So I have a video that I want to show you now that I'm asking the broadcasting unit to put up. And that video is for you to watch because we actually want you, this is your activity, to practice. So we had a lot of information tonight. Start, okay, we have what, another week home? So if you're accustomed to not even know when they sleep, start to say, okay, you can't go to sleep 11, it's 10:30 from tonight, and try to see how you can come down to 10 in 2 days. Because we really want to get that change going. We want to get them involved in that transition, you know. And one of the things about providing our children and getting them involved is giving them information that they become engaged as well. When a child is sufficiently knowledgeable about what's going to happen next, they're less likely to have the anxiety breakdown. Oh my, what's going to happen? I don't know. They know, I just need to call so-and-so, this is going to happen, or this will normally happen. And the earlier we begin to do those things, the best. And we think we can begin very early. We just start to talk to our children in preschool, casually, simple things, and we build on that as the years go on. It's very difficult to start a conversation at teenage years, so we want to encourage you, persons with small children, to begin. And if you haven't begun that, and the child is a teenager, you have to find a way to listen. Teenagers are people that you have to listen to their nonverbals, what they're doing, and make contact as much as possible, and they need us as well. So I'm going to encourage EBU, Ms. Errol, is the video up so they could look at the video. And make sure you dance, get ready to dance. It should be exciting. I hope it shows after all of that.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby. waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Hey, go. Bring me down. Can't none bring me down. Your love is too high. Bring me down. Can't none bring me down. I said, bring me down. Can't none bring me down. Your love is too high. Bring me down. Can't none bring me down. I said, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness.
Harriet, I think you're still muted. You're still muted, Harriet, but I think it's
Okay.
funny. I don't think there was one head that wasn't bopping.
All right, so here is a challenge. You can find the song online. And
Yes.
yes, but you want to have a practice day before school opens. So the practice day begins the day before, helping them make the checklist, put it on the fridge, and you see, get the children involved, let them make the schedule, and you want to create that because you see, it relaxes them, they think it's fun, they're energized, they've been out of school for almost 6 months. It's a long time, and it's something they have to get accustomed to again. So we want you to have a dry run with them. We want you to practice. Have them ironing. A teenager can begin to iron, or probably a little bit before that, ensure safety and that type of thing. And we want to get them involved, and we want to practice around as much as possible. So what do the parents think? You think you're up for a practice around?
Yes. I dare say that they are. Watching the clip there, I'd be excited to have my own. I wish we had another session where the best practice one, there's a competition of sorts.
I know, you can
And
send
be able to post and let us see.
Yes.
I think you had mentioned something about having a plan, and I know we had talked in our conversation about having an emergency plan. There are too often situations happen at school, and we would have had a number for the parent, but somewhere along the line, the number got disconnected or changed, and it wasn't updated. The school wasn't given the updated information. And I think it's important for parents to teach their children their contact number. I think it's important, not just while the child is at school, but we do know in time past that sometimes children ventured off to the library. Sometimes children may live close by enough that they could walk home, and anything can happen between leaving the school plant and reaching your destination. And I think it's really important to name. What is your mommy's name? Mommy. What is your daddy's name? Daddy.
And where does my mommy work? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. She catch the bus. So,
those are some of the very basic social knowledge that we can share with our children. Sometimes they come to your workplace, but they don't know the name of the building.
That's right. That's what my mommy works round the corner down there.
In that building, but then they can't really say, this is the name of the building, because there's some institutions where people work where they're like government departments, and they're not identify. And then in the crisis situation, the thing about it, I think that COVID has taught us is being prepared for emergencies generally. And so once we are prepared, then we lessen impacts and we continue to share information. So communication is very important because a child can sit down and write down what's such and such number, where do I work? This is something you can do while you're cooking.
That's right.
Just
And don't get upset when they call you umpteenth time. Don't get upset. Oh, mommy, I'm just learning it now. I'm trying it for the first time. And then the first time it come the 20th time.
Oh, yeah, keep calling. You know. And so that's important too. Another thing too is for persons who would have to adjust the new time frames, arriving early for temperature checks. You may
Yes.
want to jump in your car, see how quickly you either drop them to the school bus junction, or if you're taking them directly to school, judge the time. That's another thing you can do. Please make sure the uniforms can fit. We may have some situations where persons have gotten really tall because
Yes, yes. You gotta take down the hem.
Yes, and Dr. Walter Thomas, they've been drinking box juice. They're going to 2 and 3 per day. And it's too much of sugar, and they put on a bit of weight. And so these are all different factors that we want to look at. And so all that's a part of your checklist. Those are things you want to begin to look at right now, you know, and focus on it's back to school. And when the entire family becomes involved, it's so much more fun. Put on some music, yes. You know, you're putting the shoes out, and they cleaned, bags are packed, did I forget this, did I forget that? And we know there are different procedures in terms of who can visit the school plant. So I know in some schools, I know in my younger daughter, so you have to take the books before school actually begin, at least a week before, and leave them at school because you'll be dropping the child at the gate. And so
that's right. And I want you to repeat that. I want you to repeat that, Harriet, because there in time past, parents need to understand it's no longer business as usual, where you have to be at work for 8 o'clock or for 7:30, and you drop the child off at the school plant at 7 o'clock. You cannot do that anymore, parents. You cannot. Dr. Walters Thomas talked about broadening your support system. Open everyone, but you cannot drop your children off and be on your way. You want to make sure that they are safe and that you know that your child has entered the school compound when they're supposed to. Times have changed, please.
Yes, that is they're very important that people are aware, so we minimize you know, challenges September, you know, there will be always the adjustment situations. We can lower the impact with preparation. I think Dr. Walter Thomas suggested that, yes.
Yes, yes.
With preparation, very, very important. So, you know, and make sure also you have, you know, the correct names. Sometimes the children, I'm going by my grandma. What's your grandma's name? I don't know. Some children turn on the wrong road. People are trying to direct them home, or they want to call somebody, you know. And so these are just a few things that we need to, because as you begin to get prepared, as you begin to do your dry run day, you will begin to see, oops, I didn't think about that. Oops, I want to make pancake, but I don't have the time. So I'm either making them the night before, or we having pancake on the weekends and having a simpler breakfast. Lots of fine details to iron out. And
it's important to prepare.
Our children with allergies who can't eat certain things, and lots of different issues. And for those persons who are asthmatic, I think remember to put your pump in your bag, etc.
That's right.
I'm trying to flesh out all the different things that's popping into my head.
I also wanted to also encourage parents, just remind your children that not everyone that sneezes or coughs has COVID. And so we want them to be kind. We want them to be empathetic. And, you know, we like to, children will be children, and they'll try to chase each other around the school compound and say, you know, they'll stick their fingers in places they shouldn't stick it and say, oh, I'm gonna give you Rona. Rona's coming to get you. And so we really want parents, this is where you come in. This is where you start the preparation from home. start letting them know what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. And I think together, if we work together, the impact wouldn't be as much if we work together and we're prepared. Anything else, Dr. Murray, Dr. Walter Thomas, anything else you want to share? We're just about to wrap up. A last note of song, thought. Unmute your mic for me, Dr. Walters. Thanks.
I was just saying that this has been a very good conversation, and I'm pleased that the parents are able to benefit from this conversation. There's one thing that you said that I thought was very important, is the parents also need to update their children's allergies when they get back to school. So all the relevant medical information really needs to be re-updated and communicated to the principal and to the appropriate persons in each school.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Murray?
Well, I would just echo what said about being very good advice, very good, very relevant advice that parents can use. I think some of the information gathered today it's easily applicable, applied, I should say, easily, readily applied. And I think with that, we should be able to enter the new school year with less fear because of the information that we've gained today.
Yes. And I want to say thank you again to both of you, Dr. Murray, Dr. Walter Thomas, for really accepting the call to be a part of this conversation and sharing the information that you have. Before I even go any further in my thank yous, I just want to remind parents, this one little last tidbit. The bedroom might not be the best place for study time. You know, you want to create a separate space where your children can sit and recognize, whether it's at the dining table or someplace in the house, where they're less likely to fall into the, oh, I just want to lay down and read. Oh, I think I just want to lay down and write and do this homework. You want them to be sitting upright. You want the juices to be flowing and get the body and the brain and the mind and everything connected. We're busy. We're ready to get busy with our work. So just keep that in mind. And as I was saying before, I do want to extend a thank you to Drs. Murray and Walter Thomas for joining us today for our Back to School edition. I also want to say thank you to the counseling unit, our colleagues, our support system behind the scenes.
Yep.
I also want to say thank you to the EBU staff who really make this possible on Zoom as well as Facebook Live. And I also want to thank those who work behind the scenes, forwarded the flyer and really get the word out there. We're thankful for the 50+ persons who came on and commented. The comments were very positive, very encouraging. And we really hope that the parents take the information, run with it, and make it work. We're all in this together, and I know we're going to get through. And of course, I have to thank my lovely co-host, Harriet. we really have fun doing this. We really have fun doing this.
Nice.
And so just a reminder, next Tuesday, September 1st, we'll be having another session, and this is for the special education needs students and their parents, but all are welcome because the information that will be shared then will be definitely beneficial to everyone. So we encourage you to join us next Tuesday, 5:30. The flyer is about, so you'll definitely see the information. Also, the video that was shared with by Dr. Walter Thomas, it's in the chat. You just need to scroll up and you will see it. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Have yourself a good evening, and see you Tuesday. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thanks again, Dr. Murray, Dr. Walter Thomas. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
You're welcome.
All righty.
Thank you, ladies.
Positive behavior management is a systematic approach to changing behavior, modifying behavior, so that we can get positive results from children. We always talk about the behavior that we're seeing and also about the effect that it has on society, how the young people in society act, as we like to say. If we want to see the correct behavior, we have to teach it, we have to model it, and we have to let the children know to think before they act. And this is what PBM does. They're taught that there are consequences to every action. So rather than thinking mindlessly, they become responsible persons who think before they act, because these young people are going to grow up to be the citizens of tomorrow. And if we don't change that behavior, what's going to happen to our society?